Greetings, Magic community. I'm Mike from MTG Scribe, and it's been a while, but Worlds is this week, and I couldn't pass up the opportunity to do the Worlds Preview Extravaganza. So we're going to be talking about that in a moment. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. As you can hear from my voice, I'm still a little sick. I had bronchitis the last couple of weeks. I haven't really been able to talk very much. I've been coughing like crazy. So if there's any kind of weird edits in this video and it seems like I cut out abruptly, I'm trying to save you all from that. It is mostly under control at this point. I'm mostly better, but again, my voice is still a little bit rough. Nothing like it was. But um, yeah, like I said, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to do this preview for Worlds coming up later this week. So a few things before we get started. My plan right now is to live stream on Twitch to co-stream Worlds on Friday, at least on Friday. I would like to also do part of Saturday, at least the limited rounds, but given the fact that I'm still getting over bronchitis, I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to do that, but I'm at least going to attempt to co-stream on Friday on Twitch. I believe the broadcast starts at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It might be 2 p.m. I will put a link in the description of this video for my Twitch channel and also the exact time that it is starting. But if you don't want to hang out in the official Magic the Gathering Twitch chat, I fully understand that place is not the most friendly place in the world, not the most conducive to discussing strategy or what's actually happening. So I'm going to have my Twitch live, and we can just hang out and watch the event and talk about it in a fun, constructive way, hopefully. The other thing I'm going to be doing for sure, even if I'm not streaming on Saturday, for all of day one and day two, so Friday and Saturday, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a link on MTG Scribe that is going to go to a Google Sheet that I have set up, and I'm going to be providing round by round standings that are spoiler free. So one of the things that I like about modern uh, high level tournament coverage is that there is a delay between when they actually show the matches and when they happen. I think it makes for a much more smooth viewing experience and a much more fun viewing experience. But the biggest negative from that is that they can't really share standings on MTG Melee because they're a round or two ahead. So if you want to go and see how your favorite player is doing because they haven't been mentioned on coverage at all, then you have to risk, not risk, you have to just straight up be okay with spoilers. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use those Melee standings. I'm going to have two sheets. I'm going to have one that's not available to the public and one that is available to the public. And I'm going to paste them in round by round as they actually happen. And then once coverage has said that they're made it clear that they're finished with whatever round they're on, I'm going to go ahead and publish that round's standings. It should have the standings and it should have any links to deck lists. So once the standard decks go live in round 4 and Melee has updated, those will also be on my sheet, and you'll be able to follow those same links. Be a little bit careful because sometimes when you go to a Melee link for the deck, it does show the associated record with it, so there might be a little bit of spoilers there, but you'll still have a way to get to them. And if you know about it, you should be able to avoid any spoilers if you want to enjoy coverage to the best of your ability. I'm going to do this for all of day 1 and day 2, like I said. Obviously, I'm not going to do it for day 3 because they're just going to show everything on day 3 and it doesn't really make much sense. But at least for the first 2 days. I've done this before. I think the last time I did it was the Outlaws of Thunder Junction as like a test case for how I wanted to do it, and it seemed to work out pretty well. People seem to enjoy it. So again, I'll put a link in the description of this video to MTG Scribe, where a little later this week I'll have that page go live, and you can pay attention to that when it's time for results to start pouring in. And then one last little thing. Also on Friday, we're going to have 2 different Magic panels. There's going to be the Foundations. I forget what they call it. Blake named it something like the Foundations of Magic's Future or something like that. And that is going to be like the Gen Con panel from last year, where they go over the next year plus of Magic sets. So we'll probably get a lot of details about sets coming out next year in 2025, we'll get a little bit of detail about sets coming out in 2026 and maybe like a little teaser for things beyond that. So that happens, I believe, at 4:30 Eastern time, and then an hour after that is the actual Magic Foundation's set preview starts. It's a separate panel that happens about an hour later. So more or less right after the first one ends. Uh, on my live stream on Friday, I plan to at least follow uh, live tweets. I don't think they're not showing it live, but it will be up on YouTube later. So maybe we'll watch that at least at a fast forward and see what happens. But I'm gonna react to that a little bit live once it happens. So again, enjoy me on Friday. Join me, and enjoy the proceedings on Friday. And yeah, let's just hang out and enjoy Magic to the best of our ability. And I believe that is everything I had to talk to you about. I'm a little out of practice when it comes to talking. I believe that's everything I had to talk about before starting the preview for Worlds. So let's get into it. So we're going to talk a little bit about 9 different players today. The 8 players that are still in contention to win the Kai Budde Player of the Year award, which I'm going to refer to as the Kai for the remainder of this video, unless I forget. And one other player who I think deserves to be shouted out and deserves to have an eye kept on them. Now, obviously, I can't say for sure if any of these players are going to win, but I think one of the interesting storylines going into Worlds this year is these 8 players who have a shot at winning the Kai Budde Player of the Year award. So we're going to go over how they've done, how they got to this point, how they did in the previous 3 Pro Tours, what their limited and constructed and overall win rates look like, and we are going to take a look at what they need to do to put themselves in a position to have a shot at winning the Kai this year. But first, we're going to look at a player that is not in contention, but someone who I think would be a shoo-in for the Rookie of the Year this year if it A, existed, and B, wasn't for Jason Yee, who has had a straight-up absurd year this year. But Nicole Tipple played in her first ever Pro Tour this year, and it wasn't Murders at Carlisle Manor. It wasn't the first Pro Tour of the year. It was the second Pro Tour of the year. And despite the fact that she only played in 2 Pro Tours this year, she did qualify for Worlds through adjusted match points, which is sort of unreal. If you remember, it's only the top 32 players that qualify get that at-large bid for Worlds, and it only matters for Pro Tour is all that matters for that. Your Pro Tour standings. The fact she managed to do it with only 2 Pro Tours under her belt is pretty wild. And like I said, Nicole Tipple, she played in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. That was her first ever Pro Tour. She went 11-5 there with a 68.8% win rate. Pretty astounding. Modern Horizons 3, she suffered a little bit. She went 9-6-1 for a 52.25% win rate. And then overall, for Limited, she finished the year in the 2 Pro Tours she played in with a 58% win rate, 7-5. And for Constructed, she finished with a 65% win rate at 13-6-1. Now, for Limited, she finished better than Yuta Takahashi, who is in 8th place for the Kai Budde Award currently. And for Constructed, she finished better than Sean Goddard, who is currently in 7th place. So if she had another Pro Tour this year, it's entirely possible she would be in the conversation with these other players, which is the main reason I wanted to bring her up. As I said, I think she'd be a shoo-in for Rookie of the Year if it wasn't for Jason Yee, who we'll talk about in a bit. But Nicole has had a phenomenal year, great year for someone who has never played in a Pro Tour before, and it'll be really interesting to watch and see how she does at her first Worlds. All right, now on to the currently in 8th place for the Kai Budde Award, Yuta Takahashi. Yuta, obviously a former world champion, finished the Murders at Carlisle Manor Pro Tour with a record of 11-4-1 for a 68.8% win rate. Pretty impressive. Outlaws at Thunder Junction matched that with an 11-3-2 record for another 68.8% win rate. Again, incredibly impressive. Modern Horizons 3 slipped just a little bit. Uh, hold on one second. I think there is a mistake in my calculations here. Nope, I'm good. As it turns out, the for the Modern Horizons 3 Pro Tour, Yuta finished at a unfortunately disappointing 8-8 for 50% win rate. Overall for the year for limited rounds, Yuta finished with a record of 10-8 for a 56% win rate. That is the lowest by a pretty significant margin amongst all of the top 8 here. And but for constructed, Yuta finished at 27-3 over the course over for the year, for a 67% win rate, which is tied actually with Simon Nielsen in terms of constructed, um, but it's pretty far behind Jason Yee, Javier Dominguez, and a number of others. Overall for the year, Yuta finished with a record of 30, 15, and 3 for a 63% win rate. Now, what does Yuta need to do to have a shot at winning the Kai? Basically, he needs to come in first or second. Anything lower than second place, and he has no shot at winning the Kai. The way the scoring works, everyone gets at least 1 point, and even if Simon Nielsen only gets 1 point, Yuta still needs to finish second or better to win the Kai this year. So it's going to be a tough road, but he's a former world champion. If anyone can do it, it's Yuta Takahashi. So definitely don't count him out. Currently in seventh place for the Kai Budde Award race is Sean Goddard. Sean finished the Murders at Carlov Manor Pro Tour at 11-5 for a 68.8% win rate. Finished the Outlaws of Thunder Junction Pro Tour at 11-3-2 for a 68% win rate. Finished the Modern Horizons 3 Pro Tour at 10-4-2 for a 62% win rate. And then for limited, absolutely crushed it this year. Sean finished with a record of 14-3-1, which is tied with Simon Nielsen for a 78% limited win rate at Pro Tours, which those two are at the top of the list when it comes to these 8 players we're talking about right now. For constructed, Sean finished at a slightly more disappointing 18-9-3, still a 60% win rate, which is obviously really good at this level. And then for overall, finished with a record of 32-12-4 for a 67% win rate between both constructed and limited in Pro Tours this year. Really strong. Sean's had a really good year. Unfortunately, much like Yuta Takahashi, there's not much Sean can do besides win or come in second. Anything less than that, and there's just no shot at winning the Kai this year. But Sean has shown that he has really good limited chops. 70% win rate is pretty wild at the Pro Tour level over 3 Pro Tours. And with the structure of Worlds this year, uh, there's fewer overall rounds than there are at Pro Tours, which makes the 3 rounds of limited even more important. So even though Sean needs to come in second or better, again, can't count him out of making that top 8. 78% win rate in limited this year is a huge deal when it comes to a truncated tournament like Worlds is going to be versus the Pro Tours that we had. So definitely got to keep an eye on Sean. Really, really impressive stuff from him. In sixth place for the Kai Award race is Ellie Cassis. Ellie finished the Murders at Karlov Manor Pro Tour with a record of 11-5 for a 68% win rate. Finished the Outlaws of Thunder Junction Pro Tour with a record of 10-5-1 for a 63% win rate. Finished the Modern Horizons 3 Pro Tour with a record of 14-2 for an 87.5% win rate, which is the best win rate of any player at any Pro Tour other than tied with Sam Pardee at Murders of Karlov Manor. In limited this year, Ellie went 12-6 for a 67% win rate, which is really high. For constructed, went 23-6-1 for a 77% win rate, which is tied for the best of the year with both Jason Yee and Javier Dominguez. And then overall finished with a record of 35-12-1 for a 73% win rate, which is good for tied for second with Jason Yee overall when it comes to win rates at Pro Tours this year. Ellie has just a little bit more breathing room than Yuta or Sean. Ellie can finish fourth or better and still have a shot at winning. But he still needs to make that top 8, and he still needs to win that first quarterfinal game. So, again, another tough road to hoe for Eli Cassis, but he has been really consistent in both limited and constructed this year. So, again, really, really good year for Ellie. And I certainly wouldn't count him out. He's finished second place at Worlds before 2022, recently. In 2022, when we got back to in-person Worlds, even though it was in person on Arena, that weird hybrid one that they had, Ellie finished second overall and almost won Worlds that year. So he's certainly no stranger to that level of pressure. And fourth or better is what he needs to walk home with the Kai. In fifth place is Sam Pardee. Sam Pardee has had two fantastic Pro Tours this year and one that he would probably rather not remember quite so much. But at Murders Carl of Manor, Sam Pardee finished with a record of 14-2 overall. Again, that 87.5% win rate it was only matched by Eli Cassis at Modern Horizons 3. At Outlaws of Thunder Junction, Sam Pardee went 7-9 for a 43.75% win rate, which is the lowest of anybody in any of the Pro Tours that we're talking about today. But then bounced back from Modern Horizons 3, finishing 12-4 for a 75% win rate. In Limited this year, Sam went 11-7, which is slightly better than Yuta Takahashi, but worse than everybody else that we're talking about. In Constructed, however, Sam finished 22-8 for a 73% win rate, tied for second best. Second best after three people. So still 73%, wildly good. For overall, Sam finished with a record of 33-15 for a 69% win rate. Now, Sam does not necessarily need to make the top 8 to walk home with a Kai. Sam needs a record of 11. He needs 11 wins or better. I think I can't remember what the cutoff is for making the top 8 at Worlds. Uh, it might be 11 wins, but it might be 12. I actually don't remember. Regardless, needs to have a really great showing at Worlds and has obviously shown that he is more than capable of doing so. In fourth place is Javier Dominguez. Javier finished the Murders of Carlo Manor Pro Tour at 12-4, 75% win rate, tied for the best at that. In terms of this is all in terms of Swiss. I'm not taking any of the top 8 into account. The Elizabeth Thunder Junction Pro Tour finished 11-5 for a 68.75% win rate. Again, tied for the best of anybody at that Pro Tour that we're talking about today. Modern Horizons 3, he finished the record of 13-3 for an 81.25% win rate. Tied for second with Jason Yee overall. Limited this year, Javier went 13-5 for a 72% win rate, and Constructed 23-7 for 77% win rate. And overall for this year, Javier actually has the best win rate in terms of both Constructed and Limited together, with a record of 36-12 for a 75% win rate. What can you say about Javier Dominguez? He is obviously an unreal player. Now, to walk away with a Kai, Javier needs a record of 10-2 or better. So it doesn't quite need 11 wins, but needs 10 and at least 2 ties. Not easy by any means, but Javier has been on fire all year long, and actually might be a little under the radar for a lot of people. Even though he's fourth in the Kai, just like the level he's been playing this year has been pretty astounding. He has just barely missed out on those top finishes that get people noticed at that level. So unless you're really paying attention, you might be underrating Javier a little bit this year, and we'll see what they can do. Third place is Jason Yee. Jason, as I mentioned before, almost certainly a lock for Rookie of the Year, beating out Nicole Tipple. Jason being able to do this over all 3 Pro Tours of the year, and we'll go over its records in a second. And obviously, it's Jason's first year of Pro Tours. Jason qualified for Murders of Carlov Manor Pro Tour a year ago at Magic on Vegas by winning the limited 75K tournament that was happening. Uh, Qualified for Murders of Carlov Manor Pro Tour, which is its first Pro Tour. Finished with a record of 11-5 at that one for a 68.75% win rate. Atlas of Thunder Junction matched that with a record of 11-3-2, exact same win rate, 68.75%. And then went on to Modern Horizons 3 and finished with a record of 13-3, which is an 81.25% win rate, which is tied for second best at Modern Horizons 3 amongst the players we're talking about today. In Limited, Jason has finished with a record of 12-6 for a 67% win rate, and Constructed with a record of 23-5-2 for a 77% win rate. As I mentioned, that is tied with Javier and Ellie as the best of anyone we're talking about today. Overall, Jason's record was 35-11-2, good for a 73% win rate, which is tied for second with Ellie Cassis. Obviously, Jason has had a phenomenal year. I think it would, unless like Jason doesn't finish, doesn't make day two, and like Nicole wins Worlds. I think if the Rookie of the Year was still an active thing that they did, maybe Nicole overtakes Jason at that point. But beyond something extreme happening, if Jason just makes day two, I think it deserves the Player of the Year or the Rookie of the Year trophy pretty easily. Now, when it comes to the Kai Budde Award, important to note, there's never been a player who has won both the Rookie of the Year and the Kai Budde Award. And again, I keep talking about the Rookie of the Year, even though it's not actually active right now. I do think it's worth thinking about and paying attention to. But Jason needs to finish with a record of 10 and at least 10 wins to have a shot at the Kai Budde award this year. And Jason has yet to fail to do that at any Pro Tour it's played in this year. So we'll see what happens. But Jason is has work to do, but is not in the worst shape to get there. Again, has not finished worse than 10 wins at any Pro Tour. So absolutely, it is on the table for Jason to win the Kai Budde Award. Currently in second place for the Kai Budde Award is Seth Mansfield. Seth Manfield. Seth won. Seth finished Murders of Carlov Manor with a record of 12-3-1, 75% win rate. Allies of Thunder Junction had a bit of a dip at 9-7 with a 56% win rate. Then bounced back for Modern Horizons 3 with a record of 12-4, 75% win rate. When it comes to Limited, Seth finished with a record of 12-6 this year for a 67% win rate. A constructed record of 21-8-1 was good for a 70% win rate. And an overall record of 33-14-1 gets Seth to 69% for the year. Seth has had one low, but two phenomenal tournaments at Murder of Carlov Manor and Modern Horizons 3. Seth needs a record, just like Jason, needs a record of 10 wins or better to have a shot at the Kai this year. Unlike Jason, there has been one Pro Tour this year that Seth finished with less than 10 wins at Allies of Thunder Junction. So despite the fact that Seth has had higher highs, the baseline isn't quite as good as where Jason finished. So it'll be an interesting battle. Now, if you've been keeping track, that means that Seth, Jason, and Javier all need at least 10 wins to have a shot at the Kai. Sam Pardee needs 11, and then Ellie needs to come in at least fourth, and Sean and Yuta need to finish second or better. Who are they chasing? They're all chasing one person. And that is, of course, Simon Nielsen. Simon finished Murder of the Carlov Manor Swiss with a record of 12-4, 75% win rate. Allies of Thunder Junction dipped a little bit, finishing at 10-5-1 for a 62.5% win rate. Bounced back from Murders of Carlov Manor with another 12-4 finish. In Limited this year, Simon finished with a record of 14-4 for a 78% win rate. That is tied with only Sean Goddard. The next closest after their 78% is Javier Dominguez with 72%. So even that's a pretty significant gap. Constructed this year, Simon finished at 29-1 uh, good for a 67% win rate, which is on the lower end amongst the people we're talking about today. Sean Goddard finished with a 60% win rate, but the only other person down at 67% is Yuta Takahashi. So if Simon has had any failing this year, it has been constructed. Simon finished with an overall record of 34, 13, and 1 for a 71% win rate. Um, as I mentioned with Sean Goddard, however, the fact that Simon Nielsen is a limited specialist does a lot of good for him because those limited rounds are weighted higher in Worlds than they were at the individual Pro Tours. So, what does Simon need to do? Well, Simon finishes fourth or better. That's it. He is the Kai Budde Award winner. If any of the other players we talked about don't at least meet their minimum requirements, if Seth, Jason, and Javier all finish with only 9 wins, and Sam Purdy finishes with only 10 wins, and Ellie, Sean, and Yuta don't make the top 8, that's it. Simon takes it. If none of these players make day 2, Simon is the player of the year. So Simon is in the catbird seat. Why would I even say that? Who says catbird seat? What does it even mean? Whatever. Simon's in the catbird seat apparently, and is holds all the cards. Simon just matches anyone else. He is probably fine. But yeah, it's his race to lose at this point, which is a little bit fitting. This would be Simon's, if Simon is managed to win the Kai, this would be Simon's second consecutive Player of the Year award. And I believe, fact check me in the comments if I'm wrong, I believe the only other person to win back to back Player of the Year awards is Kai Budde. So the fact that the first Kai award winner could be only the second person ever to win back to back Player of the Year awards is pretty impressive. We'll be watching pretty closely to see how this goes. As I mentioned, when I do my live stream on Friday, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this. It's a little hard to keep live track of how this is going, um, just because of the way the top 8 points work versus the Swiss points. It's complicated, not important. We're going to be watching for these minimums to get hit, these minimum thresholds. Simon Nielsen doesn't make day 2. We really got a ball game going. Simon Nielsen does make day 2. Things get a little hairier for some people. So we'll keep an eye on that. And I cannot wait. I'm incredibly excited for Worlds. It is one of my favorite events of the year. So uh, that's all I've got for you now. I will hopefully see you on Friday when I do the live stream. Hopefully, this bronchitis is not quite as bad as it is now. Got my voice back a little bit more, have a little bit more energy. We'll see how it goes. But until next time, good luck. I hope tomorrow's a better day for you.